Street Fighter is an iconic fighting game, and I've never played it. So today I will be using a full team of Pokemon based on Street Fighter characters. And if you have an idea for a Pokemon team, be sure to comment below, and I will use it. And if you enjoy this kind of content, feel free to subscribe. Now let's get right into the battles. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, lovely people. Today I am using a Street Fighter team. Special thanks to GSM for coming up with this team idea. Now, they specifically suggested Street Fighter 6, so I included a lot of the iconic Street Fighter characters like Ryu here for Urshifu, and I included two Street Fighter characters that are exclusive to Street Fighter 6. So hopefully that's a good compromise. Now, I have two really interesting battles to showcase, as always, and I hope you enjoy this video. Now, I'm going to U-turn out versus this Iron Hands. It's a really tanky Pokemon, and my Urshifu wasn't exactly adept at handling it, at least not in this form, especially since I was just gonna get it Drake punched. So in comes the Corviknight. Now I knew that this would be a potential good switch in against my Medicham. I'm running a Choice Scarf set on this. I'm running an Axe Kick as well because that's one of Chun-Li's moves. I try to have the Pokemon fit like whatever style the Street Fighter character had in terms of like their fighting style, right? So like this is AKI for SkyLaaa, which I thought fit really well, and also like she has just like a venomous and like poisonous fighting style, right? So I have a Toxic on this. So I'm gonna go for the substitute. I was honestly anticipating the Corviknight to want to switch out, potentially fearing like a Flamethrower or a Fire Blast or something, but they end up taunting me, and I'm like, that's really bad because that counters my entire set. I'm running Toxic, Substitute, Venoshock, and a Torment, so I'm like completely walled now that I got taunted. So I'm gonna bring in my my Lodic here for Manon. Now she has a dancing fighting style, I guess. So I'm running a Dragon Dance on this, and I know that implies that I'm potentially running a physical set, but I'm not. I'm running a special set. I'm running a special attacking set. Dragon Dance is just there to boost my speed in case I need to. So the Corviknight is gonna taunt me. This Corviknight has Taunt, Protect. It has Body Press and Drill Peck. So I'm like, this Corviknight didn't even have Roost on it. That's interesting. So I'm gonna take it out there with the Hydro Pump, and they're gonna bring in the Lilligant. Now, I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna get as much damage as I possibly can because this Pokemon is really threatening, and like I didn't know if they were running like Victory Dance or anything, but they're gonna go for the Solar Blade with the Power Herb. So I'm like, oh my goodness, I am definitely not living this. Not sure if this is running a Chlorophyll or Hustle, but I know that my Milotic is definitely not going to tank that, but I did do some really solid damage there with the Ice Beam there. So I'm going to swap back in my Medicham, and I'm going to go for the Poison Jab because Zen Headbutt wasn't really like the best move that I could go for in this instance. Poison Jab just hit everything. So there goes the Lilligant. Also, the Zen Headbutt would have invited in the low kicks that they had in the back. So in comes the Granbull. They're going to intimidate me, but I thought, okay, you know, I'm still going to go for the Pure Power boosted a Poison Jab, which does a lot of damage, but the Granbull is definitely going to take me out there with the Play Rough. Granbull has a really good attack. So into my Blaziken here for Ken, because it's Blaziken, right? Unfortunately, a Sky Uppercut isn't in this game. I don't know why they took it away. That was like Blaziken's former signature move, right? So I have a Temper Flare on this, which luckily takes out the Granbull. Now in comes the Iron Hands. Now this Iron Hands was really problematic for me to deal with because obviously Iron Hands is just such a tanky Pokemon, and none of my physical attackers weren't really going to be doing too much damage to this. Also, my one really big special attacker on this team has already fainted, so it's not like I had a really good matchup into this thing anyway. So I'm running a substitute, a Blaziken on this set. I'm running a Temper Flare, Protect, obviously to boost my speed, and I'm running a Focus Punch as well as the last move on this with the Air Balloon as well, and Terra Flying. So I'm gonna get Drain Punch there, and it's really annoying because like my Temper Flare wasn't really doing a lot of damage, and obviously I can't really go for substitute Focus Punches just because the Iron Hands can always repeatedly break my substitutes. So I'm gonna get taken out there by the Drain Punch, but I did as much chip damage as I possibly could versus this thing. So I was like, okay, well, my Blaziken is gonna go down, and I'm gonna bring in my Salazzle here to hopefully like get off a Toxic Poison on this and like maybe do as much damage with one of my other Pokemon. So like I didn't know what this Iron Hands was running, if it was running like Earthquake or if it was running like Ice Punch or Heavy Slam, but they're gonna go for the Drain Punch. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm able to live that thankfully, so I'm gonna be able to get off a really powerful Venoshock, which is gonna be doubled in base power because that's how Venoshock works, because the Iron Hands is poisoned. So I was like, okay, well, that's good because Iron Hands is bulky on the defensive side, but not as bulky on the especially defensive side. I was wondering if this was like more of a defensive set than anything, but I do a lot of damage with that Venoshock. I'm not actually running any special attack investment. I have max HP and max speed on this, so I can hopefully tank as many hits as I possibly can. So there goes my Salazzle. I was thinking that this Iron Hands maybe has like Ice Punch and like Heavy Slam. Maybe that's why they didn't have like an electric move or like Earthquake. So into my Ryu here. Now, obviously Ryu is known for like the Hadouken, right? But so I'm running a special Urshifu. This is a Choice Specs Urshifu with Aura Sphere. This is a crazy set. So I'm gonna go for the Aura Sphere on the incoming low kicks. I do so much damage, but it doesn't take it out, unfortunately. They're gonna hit me with an axe kick. I was like, oh my goodness. And I get confused. Oh my goodness. So I was like, okay, I need to hit this thing because this Pokemon is really threatening. So I'm gonna get confused there, but I'm gonna get through the confusion, and I'm gonna be able to take out the low kicks with the Aura Sphere. I'm like, yes, I got another KO with this special Urshifu. This is amazing. So the last Pokemon is Dragonite. I was like, oh, I'm not really gonna be able to do much, and I hope this Pokemon doesn't have free setup. But they're gonna Terrasilize their Dragonite into a normal type. I was like, whoa, Terrasilizing in front of me is like really interesting because I do still have my Choice Specs Aura Sphere, and even though Urshifu doesn't have the best special attack, it's gonna hit like really hard, so they don't go for extreme speed. Oh, look how much damage I do! I was like, wait, this Dragonite is not multi-scale? What is? They Terrasilize normal in front of me, and I'm a fighting type, and they're not multi-scale, and they have Scale Shot, which I live on 2 health. I'm like, they're like a Scale Shot Dragonite? What is this? So they're gonna get a speed boost from the Scale Shot, but then they revealed that they have extreme speed, so I was like, okay, well, they probably should have went for that earlier because, like, I got an immense amount of damage. It probably lived on like 2 health, just like me. So into Zangief here for my Incineroar, my final Pokemon. Now I do have Darkest Lariat on this because that's one of the moves Zangief uses, and I have Terra Flying on this as well. So I'm gonna be able to avoid if the Dragonite wants to go for an Earthquake. They actually had Inner Focus, which blocked my Intimidate. So I was like, oh my goodness, thank goodness I Terrasilized into a Flying type because they went for Earthquake, and I'm obviously going to be able to dodge that, and I'm going to go for the Darkest Lariat, and I'm going to take out the Dragonite. What a crazy first game. I can't believe Urshifu got that much damage off with his Choice Specs Aura Sphere. I mean, I'm glad I'm able to show it off. I also had a Dark Pulse, Focus Blast, and U-Turn on that set with Terra Fighting to boost my Aura Sphere and Focus Blast damage. Now, into the second battle. Now, there's a second lead Corviknight, so I'm like, okay, well, Corviknight was really problematic for this team, mainly because it had a lot of physical attackers. I mean, it's a Street Fighter team. Street Fighter is all about, like, physical combat, right? So it's only natural that I had a bunch of physical Pokemon on this team, especially since a lot of the fighting styles in Street Fighter are physical. So I'm going to go for the Trick. I have Trick on this set, so I'm going to be able to trick the Corviknight a Choice Scarf. That's going to, like, really neuter its defensive capabilities. Now, in comes the Entei. Now, Entei was a huge problem in this game. So they're gonna go for the Shadow Ball here. So I'm like, okay, it's a special Entei. So they're probably like a Calm Mind Entei with like a fire move or like Terra Blast or something. So they're gonna bring in the Quagsire. I opt to go for the Hydro Pump, and that reveals that the Quagsire is a Water Absorb. So I'm like, okay, well, it's not Unaware Quagsire at the very least. That's good. That's good intel. So bringing in my Urshifu, I really wasn't sure what this Quagsire was going to do, if it was going to go for Earthquake or Toxic, but I anticipated that Toxic was going to come out more than anything, so I was like, okay, well, I don't really mind my Urshifu getting poisoned. I have my Choice Specs Dark Pulse, which looks like it doesn't really have many switches, even though Urshifu doesn't really have the best special attack. So in comes the Corviknight, the Choice Scarf Corviknight. I'm going to go for that Dark Pulse versus it. It does really good damage, oh my goodness. So I'm like, okay, I should be able to 2-hit KO this Pokemon at the very least. And I'm going to go for another Dark Pulse, and I get a KO on Corviknight. This special Urshifu is doing numbers right now. It's doing numbers. So I'm going to get more of that toxic damage accrued on me, and they're going to bring in their Entei again. Now, I was like, okay, well, chances are that this is probably going to go for a fire move against me, so I'm going to bring in my Milotic here. And they do, but they have Sacred Fire, so I was like, okay, well, Sacred Fire is a physical move. I know it looks like a special move, but Sacred Fire is actually physical. And that made me think, okay, well, this is looking like a mixed Entei. Like, that's really unpredictable, because, like, I don't know what other moves this Entei could potentially have. So they're going to bring in their Snorlax now. I opt to go for the Hydro Pump again, just because, like, I figured that maybe Quagsire wouldn't want to come in versus me, so I'm gonna eat my citrus berry. I'm running I didn't say this yet, but I'm running a Dragon Dance Milotic with a Hydro Pump, Terra Fairy boosted Alluring Voice, and I have Ice Beam on that. Now, I thought Manon and Milotic were like a pretty decent match, mainly because like Manon's color scheme has like pink and like blue on it, and there wasn't really much Pokemon that also had like a dancing aesthetic that fit Manon very well. I mean, I also thought of Oricorio, but I thought Milotic was good just because Milotic has Dragon Dance. So I'm gonna go for the Axe Kick on Quagsire coming in. Oh my goodness, it does so much damage. So I was like, well, like they have a Vileplume in the back that could easily resist my my Axe Kick, and I don't have my Choice Scarf anymore, so I can freely go for Zen Headbutt, but I miss. I was like, no, I need to take out this Pokemon. It could be a very defensive threat, so I'm gonna land my next Zen Headbutt, and I do take it out in one hit. That Pure Power boost was really something. So in comes back in the Entei. They're gonna go for the Sacred Fire, and they're gonna take out my Medicham. I didn't really have many switches into that because my Milotic was burnt, unfortunately. I don't have a Marvel skill on that. I have Competitive. So into my Salazzle here, I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna go for the Substitute here, try to see what this Entei has, because it only revealed Sacred Fire and Shadow Ball, but they have Extra Sensory on their set too. I was like, oh no, that's just gonna hit me for super effective damage. Oh my goodness, like this mixed Entei really messed up my mindset because I had no idea what to expect, and I didn't know how much investment they had on their Entei, whether they were more like specially invested but still had the physical moves, or vice versa, or if they were like mixed in their EV spread, right? So I'm gonna go for the Toxic just to get off the poison versus this thing. They're gonna continue to Extra Sensory me, and that does a lot of damage. So I'm like, okay, well, hopefully I could get off a Venoshock here. I'm not sure what this Entei is even running at all either, so I'm hoping that I could at the very least get off a Venoshock. I kind of thought that this Entei might have Extreme Speed, which they do. So I was like, okay, damn, this Entei has like everything for like my entire team. They have Shadow Ball, they have Sacred Fire, they have Extreme Speed, and they have Extra Sensory. So I'm like, okay, well, that's unfortunate because my Blaziken is probably not going to be able to set up a free substitute versus this. But at the very least, I'm going to be able to potentially Toxic Stall this Entei because that's what I have to resort to at this point. So I thought, okay, well, it's going to be pretty obvious if I go for the Protect here just to get up my speed boost so I can outspeed this. But I don't have like a fighting move to deal with this because I have Focus Punch. So I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna go for the Substitute this turn. I imagine that they're gonna keep repeatedly going for Extra Sensories, and they probably don't anticipate me being a Substitute in the first place, so they're gonna obviously break my Substitute there with the Extra Sensory. So I was like, okay, well, that's gonna break my Air Balloon, but that should be fine. I'm doing a lot of toxic damage to this Entei, and it's getting weaker and weaker. Like, it's now below half health. So I was like, okay, well, I imagine that they're eventually gonna swap out their Entei because like they're gonna lose this matchup because I'm gonna keep going for Substitute over and over again. So they're gonna bring in their Quagsire here as I go for the Substitute. Now, unfortunately, the only move I have to hit this Quagsire is the Focus Punch, which is going to allow the Quagsire to get a hit off of my Substitute. And since I don't have my Air Balloon anymore, they can freely go for the Earthquake here and break my Substitute. So I'm gonna be Substitute-less on the incoming Pokemon coming in after this Quagsire. And I thought that they would potentially go for the Recover, but they're gonna opt to break my Substitute. So I was like, okay, well, I imagine that this Quagsire is more of a specially defensive set, judging by how much Axe Kick did to it earlier on my Medicham. So going for that Focus Punch, and I'm gonna be able to take out the Quagsire here. I'm getting some really interesting KOs on these Pokemon, so that's nice. So getting that speed boost there, not like it really matters because Temper Flare wasn't really gonna be doing too much to this Dragonite. Again, another Dragonite. So this turn I thought, well, they're probably going to go for the Dragon Dance, anticipating that I don't have much to hit them with, and they do. So I was like, you know, I'm just going to go for the funny Focus Punch just to see if I can break their multi-scale here. And I'm going to be able to do that because they do go for the Dragon Dance. And I do some good damage to the Dragonite, but it was because it was a critical hit. So I was like, okay, well, it was really hard for me to switch into this Pokemon as well. So I opted to keep going for Focus Punches in case they kept going for Dragon Dances. But they're going to go for the Extreme Speed and take out my Blaziken. In hindsight, maybe I should have swapped out into my Milotic there, just because Milotic wasn't exactly looking the best, but in hindsight, it's 2020. So, I'm going to bring in my Incineroar here to intimidate the Dragonite, and, well, I thought that they would stay in and, like, probably go for the Earthquake versus me, so I'm going to opt to Terastallize here into a Fighting type. Now, I think this was, like, a hasty move on my part, but I was really, like, I was really uncertain of what the Dragonite would do. It's another Dragonite, by the way. So I went for the Terraflying bulk up on this. I terrestrialized once again my Incineroar. I'm running a specially defensive Incineroar. I haven't said this set yet. I'm running a specially defensive bulk up Incineroar with Darkest Lariat. I wish I had knockoff, but I had to keep the move accuracy, right? I had Drain Punch and I had Taunt on that with the heavy duty boots as the item. Now I swapped out versus this Entei because I really didn't want my Incineroar getting burnt, because like it's looking like my win condition at the end of this game. So I'm gonna sacrifice my Urshifu. It wasn't really gonna be doing too much to any of their last Pokemon, so I thought, yeah, like I'm gonna opt to swap that out. Now into my Milotic here, I could easily threaten this with the Hydro Pump, but the problem is they had their Snorlax in the back that could tank any special hits. Now I'm not sure how close it's gonna be if I could get a 2-hit KO on this Snorlax, but it does some good damage. So I'm like, okay, well, it's gonna be very close. I don't think I'm gonna be able to take out the Snorlax, unfortunately, but I'm gonna be able to revenge KO it with my Incineroar after, and hopefully be able to clutch up with the Incineroar in the back. So the Snorlax, I freaking Supercell Slam. I'm like, that move is really risky to run on this Pokemon. So I'm gonna get off the Intimidate, and I'm gonna go for the Drain Punch because unfortunately they had a Supercell Slam, and I'm weak to it because I'm a Flying type, and it was gonna do a lot of damage even after the Intimidate drop. So here comes the Entei. They're gonna go for the Sacred Fire. Unfortunately, or fortunately for me, I don't get burned. So I'm like, okay, that's really good that I didn't get burned. I'm gonna take him out with the Darkest Lariat. So now it's down to Dragonite versus Incineroar, Deja Vu. So the Dragonite is gonna go for Terra Normal again. So I'm like, okay, well, I actually went for the Drain Punch, anticipating they would go for the Terra Normal, and I'm hoping that it would do enough damage to where I would recover as much HP as possible on my Drain Punch, so I could be able to live and hopefully take out the Dragonite. So they're gonna go for the E-Speed. They're gonna do a lot of damage, but I live, and I do go for the Drain Punch as I mentioned, but I do some good damage, but I don't do as much as I thought. Oh my goodness. And my Incineroar doesn't really recover that much either. I think it's like a more health investment Dragonite. Oh man, that's unfortunate, because they're gonna take me out with the next Extreme Speed. But I got really close that game, and I acknowledge my mistakes that I made throughout the battle. Like, that's how I improve as a person. So thank you all so much for watching. My name is SkyLaaa. Don't forget to smile, and I will see you all next time.